Created as a means of returning Mercedes-Benz to the ultra-luxury market, the Maybach project of the early 2000s intended to combat the likes of Rolls-Royce and Bentley by delivering opulence and bespoke road-going character that was far beyond anything proposed by its rivals across the globe. Unfortunately, the Maybach models would prove to be among the most monumental failures in motoring history, as aside from the economic problems that would ultimately doom the entire scheme during the latter half of the 2000s, the cars struggled to sell regardless due to their incredible size and the fact that they were aimed at chauffeur-driven customers, while market trends moved more towards performance-orientated drivers' cars. The Maybach project takes its name from pioneering car designer Wilhelm Maybach, who, in partnership with Gottlieb Daimler, helped spread the influence of the automobile across Europe in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, thanks to innovative designs that saw huge success. Maybach, who had risen to the rank of technical director in the Daimler Motor- und Gesellschaft, or DMG, formed the Maybach Motorenbau Company in 1909 after clashing with DMG's chairman, with the Maybach Company initially specializing in aircraft and car engine production, but would eventually start building its own cars in 1919 with the Maybach W1 prototype, followed 2 years later by its first production model, the W3, an opulent machine built to rival the likes of the original Rolls-Royce Phantom. The company's repertoire for building luxury machines, while not as influential as Rolls-Royce, Daimler, or Mercedes-Benz, was world-renowned, and throughout the Roaring Twenties and into the 30s, the manufacturer produced dozens of ultra-luxury models that were unequal to their competitors. Eventually, World War II forced the company to build engines for panzer tanks and half-tracks, but Germany's defeat in 1945 saw production come to a halt, and from here on the original Maybach company would never build another car, instead turning to the production of engines and other power plants during the late 1940s and early 1950s under the moniker of MTU. In 1960, the company was bought by Daimler-Benz, and its name would appear on ultra-luxury editions of the Mercedes-Benz W108 and W116 saloon cars, hand-built machines that were the pinnacle of luxury, but were still badged as Mercedes products, this pattern continuing until 1980, when the W116 ended production, with the Maybach brand falling dormant once again, though Daimler-Benz still controlled the intellectual rights to the marque. The Maybach name would remain silent until 1997, when, during the Tokyo Motor Show, Mercedes-Benz would unveil the revived Maybach brand on a car called the Mercedes-Maybach, this new Maybach being the absolute ultimate in luxury appointment, with individual rear seats which could be reclined, two-tone paintwork, refined interior materials including cream-colored leather, select wood, high-grade trim, and all features imaginable for a luxury limousine of the late 1990s. Other facets included a bar with hot and cold drinks, a humidor for cigars, 3 telephones with a full broadband communication, and a fully loaded infotainment system featuring a 20-inch flat-screen TV, surround sound stereo system, and a CD and minidisc player, all of which were controlled by 6-inch touchscreen monitors on the left and right side of the passenger compartment. The body was built from a lightweight construction, which was formed through a hybrid of fiber composites, aluminium, and magnesium, making the car incredibly strong but highly efficient, while power came from a 6-litre V12 engine, which was later used in the 1998 S-Class, the 62-inch wheelbase car being 15 inches longer than the Mercedes-Benz S-Class, while also being 2 inches taller and wider. The result was an incredible success for Mercedes, with the Maybach receiving universal acclaim at the Tokyo Motor Show, this positive feedback giving the company the incentive to push the model forward to production, especially following the buyout of Rolls-Royce by rival German carmaker BMW and Bentley by Volkswagen, 2 ailing luxury brands that were guaranteed a significant revival with the money from their 2 parent firms now behind them. After 5 years of development, the Maybach burst onto the scene on June 26, 2002, with a Maybach 62 enclosed in a glass case aboard the Queen Elizabeth II as it undertook a transatlantic crossing from Southampton to New York, the 7-day voyage ending at the Manhattan Cruise Terminal, at which point it was lifted from the ship by helicopter, set down on the dockside, and then driven to the prestigious Regent Hotel in Wall Street, rounding out a 4,000-mile journey. The Maybach initially came in two variants, the 57 and the 62, the numbers stating each car's wheelbases, the 57 being the base model, while the 62 included optional extras for 18-way power rear seats, as opposed to the regular 14-way, power side sunshades, cooled rear seats, wireless headphones, electrochromic power panoramic sunroof, replacing the power sunroof, and steering wheel mounted navigation controls. As standard, the car included a navigation system with voice recognition, air conditioning with 4-zone climate controls, power rear sunshade, a rear seat DVD entertainment system, interior air filter, front and rear seat massage, 21-speaker Bose premium sound system, a power tilt telescopic heated wood leather wrapped steering wheel with radio and climate controls, power trunk open-close, a voice-activated AM/FM radio with 6-disc CD changer, keyless start, heated front and rear seats, cooled front seats, adaptive cruise control, premium leather upholstery, 18-way power front seats, 14-way power rear seats, heat cup holders, a rear view camera, an iPod adapter, a wireless cell phone link, outside temperature indicator, and a universal garage door opener. Both the 57 and 62 were powered by a specially built Mercedes-Benz M285 5.5-litre twin-turbocharged V8 engine producing 543 horsepower, whisking these titanic cars to a top speed that was electronically limited to 171 miles an hour, though it's theorized that the cars could have reached 200 miles an hour without it, while the 0-60 time was 5.1 seconds and an average fuel consumption of 12 miles per gallon was achievable. These two models were joined by the Maybach 57S and 62S, which featured tuned versions of the M285 engine that saw the 0-60 time reduced to just 4.8 seconds on the 57S and 4.5 seconds on the 62S, providing strong numbers when compared to the Rolls-Royce Phantom of 2003, which could reach 0-60 in 5.8 seconds and go on to 155 miles an hour, while the Bentley Continental GT had a 0-60 time of 4.3 seconds and a top speed of 202 miles an hour. The top-of-the-range version was the Maybach Landaulet, a semi-convertible version of the 62S, which tuned the engine and included all the optional extras as standard, the Landaulet being fitted with a 633 horsepower version of the 5.5-litre V12, with a 0-60 time of 4.5 seconds being recorded. While these cars were nothing but exuberant with regard to performance, their price tags were truly in a class of its own, with the base model 57 being set at $366,934, while the 62 was $431,055, and the range-topping Landaulet started at $1.35 million, thus making the new Maybach range by far the most luxurious cars ever built, and convincing Mercedes-Benz that their new flagship models would easily put up a fight against its Rolls-Royce competition. Sadly, in its first year, the Maybach only sold 166 units, against a forecast 2,000 units per annum, while 300 Phantoms and 1,000 Bentley Continental GTs were sold in the same year, sales eventually peaking at 244 units sold during 2004, though despite this, the car was still failing to sell in the same numbers as its ultra-luxury rivals. The reality was that the Maybach, despite its exceptional luxury and exuberance, was a brand that had no real recognition within the market of the mid-2000s, the last appearance of this name on a production car having been before World War II, while Rolls-Royce and Bentley remained as the true height of motoring aspiration throughout the latter half of the 20th century and into the new millennium. This was compounded by the fact that the Maybach had no real image or identity of its own when compared to regular Mercedes products, its general aesthetic being that of a scaled-up contemporary S-Class, while production of the car took place on the same assembly lines as the regular S-Class, and utilized many parts from that car, thus denting its perceived exclusivity. Worse still was the car's driver appeal, which despite its sporting pretensions with the 57S and 62S, was aimed squarely at the chauffeur-driven customer base, a direct contrast to the market trends of the early to mid-2000s, which were continuing to emphasize performance over outright luxury as a means of endearing itself to the driver, a shift that, especially in Europe, had been taking place since at least the late 1970s and was not unknown to Mercedes-Benz. However, while the Rolls-Royce Phantom and Bentley Continental GT embraced the need to provide luxury with a performance edge, the Maybach was somewhat regressive by comparison, compounded further by its excessive size that was ill-suited to the tight streets of many important markets such as the UK and Europe, leading these cars to be somewhat cumbersome when not cruising down wide accommodating boulevards in the United States or the Middle East. In the midst of the Maybach failing to sell in the numbers hoped for, the final nail for the project came with the global economic recession of 2008, one of the worst financial crashes in history, and with the base model 57, as the cheapest option, being set at over $330,000, the market for such an exuberant car was swept completely from underneath it, and what few sales there were plummeted. From 119 units sold in 2008, 2009 only saw 66 units sold, and only 63 in 2010, and despite a desperate attempt to form a tie-up with Aston Martin to develop a next generation of Maybach models, while also supporting the revival of the long-dormant Lagonda marque, on November 25, 2011, Daimler formally announced the end of Maybach production for 2013. In the end, the last Maybachs would slip silently off the production line during that year, having only sold 3,000 units, with Daimler-Benz at the end of production having accrued a loss of €330,000 for each car sold and a total cumulative loss of €990 million for the entire project, the car's place in the Mercedes lineup being replaced by the Mercedes-Benz Pullman. In the years following its demise, the Maybach's once initial praise for its size and luxury has now turned generally to scorn, with motoring critics lambasting the Maybach 57 and 62 for their failure, with Top Gear magazine listing it as one of the top 13 worst cars of the past 20 years, while those examples that survive today are generally found in the employ of exclusive hotels such as the Dorchester and the Park Tower in London, now put to work on the humdrum life of luxury airport transfers. As for the Maybach brand itself, this has been revived on a series of ultra-luxury variants of regular Mercedes high-end models, including the Mercedes-Maybach S600 Pullman, the GS50 Landaulet, and the GLS 600 SUV, while there have also been several instances since the marque's closure to create a new series of dedicated Maybach cars. While this hasn't ventured beyond the concept stage, such as 2016's Vision Mercedes-Maybach 6, it can be expected that whatever comes from the drawing board will be an exuberant, outrageous machine of pure luxury that has to be the very best, a plaything for the rich that is in a class of its own.